So, Connor, what is your relationship with the Godzilla IP franchise?
I have only seen 2 Godzilla films. I've seen the one from 2014, which I feel like...
Gareth Edwards.
Yeah.
Gareth Edwards.
The Bryan Cranston one.
Yeah. Aaron Taylor Johnson.
And the other Godzilla film, which is like my favourite, and I will die on that hill, is the 1998 one with Matthew Broderick.
Roland Emmerich.
Yeah.
Directed.
Yeah. The one in New York City.
Yes,
with
it is, yes.
The dinosaur that has no atomic breath.
I saw this original one for the first time years ago. Over a decade ago now, I think. Then I saw the Bryan Cranston one in the cinema. Thought it was fine. Never saw it again. I explained to you how I tricked myself into thinking that the sequel was going to be good. Because Michael Dougherty, the director of Trick or Treat and Krampus, did that film. I thought, well, maybe that can be. And then I just went by myself, and then it was just a complete, like...
How we fell from grace.
And then the only other one I watched is Godzilla -1, which I absolutely really loved.
I have not seen that
Really
yet.
liked that
It's
one.
on my list.
I remember I went to the cinema, and I just remember thinking to myself, why I would never have thought a Godzilla film could make me emotional. So I'm very surprised, which made me just want to go back to the original, just to kind of like retrospectively, like, okay, now I kind of have got a grasp on like what Godzilla can be. Let me go back to the original to refresh my brain.
I thought it was all right. Yes, there's like moments of pacing where I was like, come on now, like we're getting a bit like, which is interesting because, not to jump off from that, but a lot of complaints with the 2014 Godzilla film is that it spends too much time with people.
Yeah.
But then this spends like majority of the film.
Yeah.
Which obviously is fine. It's from the 50s.
1954.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And obviously budget, all that stuff. But I think it was... Some of the stuff's really good. The actual like Godzilla, I guess, monster... There's moments where I found it quite funny.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's a guy in a suit.
It's a guy in a suit.
There was one moment where he like grabs a bridge and you're just
I know exactly.
It's like, fuck this bridge.
I think in that moment, because I kind of slightly agree with you, I think I had the similar kind of like thought, because he already just wiped out like Tokyo by this point, and it felt like the scene was kind of like lowering down, like, oh Jesus Christ, we're trying to like soak in the aftermath, and then we just cut to him just kind of go, fuck that.
Yeah, and fuck this bridge as well. Tokyo's done,
and while
but
I'm
this
here,
one bridge that no one's on, just fuck that as well.
I like it more now than I did when I first watched it.
Okay.
I still don't. I'm not in love with this film.
Yeah.
But there's a lot. I do think there is a lot that I can like look and go, oh, you know what? Like, it's not one that I'm ever going to constantly keep watching again.
Yeah.
But I can see myself, like, in, like, 5-10 years' time being like, you know, I haven't watched that one in a while. I'll stick that on again.
Yeah. Obviously, a lot of that has not carried over the years, like the theme and the message. And
No.
Character relationships and have an actual story at the heart of it.
Obviously, I think the Western side has taken more of the fact of, like, we got big monsters doing big monster things.
Fight each other
and just like all like big. It's big blockbuster storytelling.
Yeah.
Storytelling, I'll put in quotes, is what they do in here. Whereas I think like the Japanese culture takes it a bit more.
Yeah.
Like of like a societal metaphor, but it's obviously of influence of the atom bomb and
Nagasaki,
Hiroshima, and like the results that came from basically all the disasters that happened in Japan during World War II, and kind of like manifesting that in the form of a monster. You see an eruption happen in the ocean, and that awakens Godzilla. At first, I remember thinking for the longest time, like, is Godzilla meant to be like in place of?
That's
the
what
H-bomb
I thought before as well. Yeah.
But what it is, it's the fact of like, no, Godzilla is of Japanese land.
Yeah.
It's more of like a thing where like it got awoken by this thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting back to back of what we talked about with Psycho, and it's interesting to go back with it. Although, because we're talking about Psycho, is very much so a it's looking at man as the monster. Where this is, we're still seeing a monster, but what's interesting is man is the cause of this monster.
The cause of the monster, yeah.
And it's not even like, and it's not like the Frankenstein sense where man made the monster. It's like the monster was not even knowledge of people. Be like, fuck, we were just testing a bomb, and now this thing's now.
Yeah, it's very cool with the fact of they start like the first part of the movie being like, oh, it must be a Godzilla. It's a legend. And
Yeah,
like,
That's,
Godzilla, that's not real. And I think with what it's saying, you've got this monster, a legend, it's the culture, it's, I guess, the past. And obviously you've got this new, dangerous man-made invention that's like walking it up. And now it's like almost bringing Japan's like past like to the forefront.
Godzilla doesn't have a motivation.
No,
like we're not
it's just
given
force of nature.
We're not given this emotion or anything. Like there's no moments where we need to make Godzilla look, I'm sad now.
Yeah,
it is the thought and fear of like, imagine if you just like unleashed a wild animal out, and the fear of unpredictability. Imagine that. Like imagine like if we were like, oh, you know, there's this really pissed off lion, and now we've opened the cage, and now the lion's just belting down the street.
Which will happen.
That shit's scary.
Yeah.
It's that, but amplified to the sense of like this big ass lizard who was just
indestructible.
Who's just you've awoken it, you've erupted, you've agitated it, and now all it's there to do is just to
destroy your city.
You. And it's interesting in the sense of like he goes away and then comes back. It is almost like a thing where like it's not just he's out and then we don't have an hour of.
Yeah,
I do like the fact how we get bursts of Godzilla wreck shit, goes away, everyone has to go like fuck.
Yeah,
we do know he's not gone, right? You do know he's not gone. He's gonna keep coming back. If we're talking horror subgenres, the monster genre might be my least favorite overall. Like from what I can, like if I had to quickly think, there's a lot of like monster, specifically giant monster,
like kaiju stuff.
Yeah, I will say I'm not too familiar with kaiju stuff, but like just the concept of like big giant monsters destroying shit has never appealed to me. It's weird. I do think this film actually kind of has the balance of. You do have the big monster escapism, but the film is kind of grounded in the sense of like. I mean, there's a lot of military people and scientists around ballrooms going like, "What the fuck is good? We need to conquer this way. This is this is a result." There's that one section as well. This is a result of the H-bomb test. Yeah. And then people being like, well, we can't let that get out there because we can't. And then the other panel being like, but that's the truth. We need to let people know that's the case. It goes, yeah, but what was it? It was because it was revealed that he's radioactive.
Yes.
So then it became, again, there's things like that where like these are like really like genuinely like hefty topics that are like war-centric.
Yeah, and you get both sides of like the morals from like the characters, which then adds to the dynamic of the relationships.
So Japan, and during this time, they did make a lot of like media about that, and they try to like do it in the thing of like they wanted to make films that, because obviously they were villainized in Western media, they wanted to make film like media being like now look from our perspective, now look at this. So that's, and I think
it does a good job.
I think like what other like really better way to, again, if we're talking about, especially if you're trying to like make a film that's entertainment as a thing, it's like we're gonna do a big giant monster, but we're going to show you that the big giant monster is, what
is a metaphor.
There's shots in this film as well where it's like you're seeing like a whole towns of people running, like fleeing, and that could be images from a documentary. To be perfectly honest, so you're seeing moments of like wreckage and debris, and a child looking at her mum with blood, and it's like this does look like an aftermath of a bomb, and there is something very raw, like even like. Especially a film that is like, what, 70 years old? Yeah. There's still something about like seeing stuff like that now and being like, there is something very heartbreaking just about this imagery. It does play more into the fearful side as opposed to the action side.
Yeah, definitely. It plays into the fears of society at that time, obviously what they'd faced, and then obviously they're still facing the aftermath. So then they don't want it continued.
It's the unknown of like, can this keep happening?
And it was unknown for them.
It was a film even recently that talked about, if we don't even talk Oppenheimer, they mentioned the fact, well, the whole point about like was it the president scene where he's just like, we need to like drop the bomb to make them know that we can keep doing it.
Yeah.
That's a possibility, even though they had no intention really to keep doing it, but they were like, they need to know that's the case. And again, and the film does play on the fear where it's like Godzilla comes, wreck shit, he goes, but then he keeps coming back.
Yeah.
So it is showing the fact of like, well, what if this did keep happening?
Yeah.
What if this carnage did keep
Well, you've
going?
got that line where it's like, even when Godzilla dies, spoiler, I don't think that's the last Godzilla. There'll be another one somewhere else.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, exactly.
So, like,
which, again, you could play it about it being like, oh, it's a species. But also, like, in the fiction world, it's like, it's a species of monster. It's not one individual thing.
Yeah.
It's a species. But it is a thing where it's like, I mean, yeah, it's like, we got rid of one.
Yeah.
But then what's to say that?
Yeah, which is the same as the bombs and war and
it's. I do think, and again, the concern it's a film that is like an hour and 30 summit. Yeah. They do put a lot in it. Obviously, the conversations that happen between the dad,
because he doesn't want to kill
examine
Godzilla.
it and all that
He's
stuff.
like, we can learn from it. Yeah.
But then you hear like who is, I guess, the main protagonist. He's saying like, but it's constant chaos. We need it. So it's like, I see both of these points.
You can see all of them, yeah.
And then obviously the character, I forgot his name again, the one with the eye patch.
Sawazawa?
He's invented this thing to be like, this can kill it.
Yeah.
But also, if this gets out, they're going to look at that and go like, well, that's a mint thing for what, for like, so I was like, I can never let this get out. He is the Oppenheimer of this film.
He is the
film,
Oppenheimer.
Really.
You've almost got 3 levels to the whole film then, with like... The metaphor...
3 different morals, isn't
yeah,
it?
exactly.
Yeah.
The metaphor of Godzilla being like this thing of like being unknown, and then you've got the metaphor of like, this is the aftermath of what destruction is, and da-da-da. And then you've got the whole thing of like, oh, well, if we have a thing of mass destruction, it probably should not be out there and should like die with us.
There's a lot of things that this film brings to the table that doesn't feel ham-fisted.
Yeah.
And that feels like, okay, no, this feels right for this film. Like, this is what this film clearly is about, and it's not preachy.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of like political films can fall into the trap of being like, we get it.
Yeah.
Fucking whatever.
It's because it uses a device so well.
Yeah. We don't see Godzilla for the first half an hour.
Yeah, you don't actually know.
He's immediately a presence in the film.
Yeah.
That's established. The first scene is a boat getting fucking wrecked.
Yeah.
We don't see him.
The first thing you see of him is actually is the leg.
And the first time we see Godzilla is like
coming over the hill.
Head pokes
out. Is it a monster?
Yeah. Which I think, and again, I mean, you mentioned the fact about it's interesting how like because the 2014 one got a lot of criticism for being like,
there's no monsters.
No monsters.
Fighting.
There's just humans. I think my issue isn't the fact of like with that film. My issue isn't the fact of like we don't get more Godzilla. My issue with it was more of like, well, the humans just weren't interested.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say any of the characters are of the level of like, I am really attached to this person.
Oh no.
But I at least I'm invested enough to see.
Yeah,
like,
you can understand the relationships.
Yeah,
and stuff.
And we see, okay, there's a husband, there's a wife, there's her dad, and then there's their mate who's also,
and the 2 lovers. They just want to tell everyone that they're in love, but they can't because there's a fucking monster.
Yeah, it's all simple enough character types, but I think it's like. I mean, I can't explain this when Curtis and I talked about Halloween. It's like, you don't need much more than just to be like, well, just like, don't make them cardboard fucking people, but like at least put them in scenarios and show them vulnerable.
Yeah.
I think as well, especially like if you want to try to make it like this metaphor for atomic warfare and the effects of that, we need to make this thing actually fearful.
Yeah, you can't humanize it.
By the time Godzilla was an actual factor in this film, it's this distant looming thing coming towards us. And if anything, in the foreground, we're seeing people run. Like, that's what the focus is on. It's on the people, like, running away. That's what kept me personally invested in this.
Yeah.
Because as I said, I'm not big on, like, big monster films. Because it's like, well, what am I looking at?
CGI things hitting
Yeah.
each other.
Even if this film did that, where it was
Yeah.
just more like, well, we're just seeing Godzilla,
Well, I know after this they have like the Moth and
like
Mothra and
Mecha Godzilla, I think.
and King Kong and
They bring King Kong in the thing.
all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, like, to me, that's just not my.
Yeah.
That's not my style. It was shot in black and white, not for a stylistic reason, but for budgetary. But also, I think
It works.
that's the only way Godzilla could have actually been somewhat of an intimidating presence.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I was scared of Godzilla, but there's shots in this film, I think, that you look at and go like, oh, fuck.
It looks like a dark entity.
I can suspend disbelief that is, even though I know it's a man in a suit, and there's things that you can see where it's clearly fake, but it's the fact of like, yeah, as you said, like it's almost this dark, shadowy, just like figure.
And you've got the white pop of like the eyes and stuff.
Some of its features gets caught by the light
By
every
the
now and then,
lighting,
so
yeah.
it's like it's not just a fully lit big green thing.
Yeah.
Because I think if that's the case, it's like, all right, this is a bit hokey. This like,
And you suspend your belief enough. It's so well made and well done with the miniatures and everything that it's sort of like you believe it. You it's built it up so well with the story and everything that like, yeah, it would be a shame if it was like became really tacky and in color, but it doesn't. It keeps going and it doesn't fail to like the train. The whole thing with the train was really cool.
oh, they do
Like-
some really cool things about that with that whole sequence where it's like we see, because again, I'm breaking it down in my sense, like because they got to the period, that point where it was just him wrecking Tokyo.
Through Tokyo, yeah.
And I'm trying to like look at it going, oh, okay, well, how are they piecing this together? This is interesting. And then we go from like a shot of like Godzilla walking, and then we then cut to what is clearly a miniature of a train, on the
going
tracks.
through, yeah.
And then we cut to an interior of the train. I was like, okay, well, that would have just been a set with extras in it. I'm like, what an interesting like piece of filmmaking. The filmmaking of this, I think, is super impressive.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
Even to a modern day standard, I think of like, fucking, that'll take some effort now to create. And again, even though we can see it's a miniature, we know it's a toy train, we know it's a man in a suit, but also what happened to people like suspending disbelief?
Yeah.
What happened to
If
us?
a film's good enough, has a good premise, story, then I think you naturally sort of do that, and a lot of filmmakers forget that.
Yeah,
and it's sort of like, oh, just shove a CGI whatever it is in there, and it's sort of like,
I do think it helps because we do spend so much of the film we're seeing actors give these really dramatic performances, and do they fall in melodrama? Almost, I think.
some of the performances were a bit, okay.
But I know it was the dad's name. I believe I think it might be Takashi Shimura. Oh fuck, this is a legit prestige Japanese actor right here. And you've seen him giving these like, an actual performance that by that point you've watched the whole film being invested in this real Japanese drama, that when it comes to the big suit, like the guy in the suit, you're already into
invested,
the film.
yeah.
Whereas like if the film was like boat sinks, Godzilla's up and going, say, all right, that's what's gonna, and then the dramatic acting would be like, all right, give over. Like we've already seen the corny suit.
If you started the film with the guy in the suit smashing something up, you'd be like, what? Oh, right, okay. And then it cuts to like the drama bit. You'd be like, well, what the hell?
I think we would have, if that was the case. All right, well, we've seen it now.
Yeah.
I saw what I came for. Whereas like it's the build up, and all the budget did really go onto like the big old like get the suit, get the miniatures,
the
and
sets.
the miniatures are great. It's not just like a row.
Oh no!
And then it's a whole like,
individual pieces.
Yeah.
Like some of the shots are so busy.
The fire in those moments as well. It's like, all right, they would have had to set all those on fire and have
all
a big,
the
like,
extras.
Yeah,
So many extras.
Yeah.
My God.
And there's the original King Kong did it, which is a really cool fucking thing where it's like they like. I don't know the exact like technical side of it, but they have like they film like the monster thing filmed separately, and they just comp it in like they overlay the films, all like the real extras running away, and then we see Godzilla in. Those are two separately shot things, but then they just overlay the actual film stock,
right? Okay,
and they kind of like do it in that way, which again I think is just cool as fuck.
That is pretty cool.
Do you think that Godzilla the original just is like surpasses just simply being a big like a monster film?
It might do. Maybe. I think because it was the first, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was mainly the first.
King Kong was about as well.
Yeah.
In the 30s, that was the 30s.
Was it before? Okay. Yeah. I think Godzilla has more at stake. It has more of a message. To be fair, I'm trying to think of other, like, I guess, monster-esque kaiju films that have sort of the same, I guess, like, themes, message, something, like, bigger than just monster destroys something, we must defeat it.
Yeah.
I can't really think of much.
It's just more. It's Godzilla -1. It's more, and I haven't seen Shin Godzilla. I've heard Shin Godzilla is apparently the same kind of thing. My thought with it, because again, I was trying to think to myself, it's like, does this surpass is this more than just a monster movie? And I don't think it's more than a monster movie. I think it is just the best kind of monster movie. It's the pinnacle.
Yeah.
I don't think because I think simply saying it's more than.
Yeah.
Devalues what it
because it's like, the original. It's like
and again, it's like with reading like the actual like definition, it's a monster movie is centers around characters trying to survive destruction, like the destruction caused by an antagonistic monster, usually large.
Yeah,
that is all in this film.
Which they do. Yeah.
But there's another layer to the film in the sense of like, but what does it mean and blah 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 blah.
It's just a good one.
So yeah, I don't think there's anything to really like, because I feel like a lot of people can kind of either look at this film and go, no, it's not just a monster movie. It's like, well, that is a monster. I feel like that just devalues the film in the sense of like, well, it is a monster movie. It just does that the best.
Yeah,
there's a lot to take away from it. As I said to you, if we maybe nitpick, the pacing's a bit.
Yeah.
Like, it's a bit all over the place in the sense of, like, it picks up some... Or, like, I don't know about you, but for me, it's like, the first act, I'm interested. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then towards the second act, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think the first... Like, even just the first 10 minutes, I was like, oh, my God. It was just, like, going through, like, so many different things. Like, so many shots, like, changing so much. And I was like, oh, wow. Because obviously I've not seen it, so I was like, is the whole film going to be like this? I was like... I don't know.
Yeah, we do jump a lot of like different scenarios, don't we?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up, but then it slows down a bit. It has like a really good pace, and then it sort of gets really slow at one point. I think personally, some of like the really like we're going to talk about science bogs it down a little bit, being like dinosaurs, trilopods.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
and it's like. I don't really need a presentation. Like, I'm not in school. I didn't sign up for, like, dinosaur studies. Yeah, it sort of slows down a bit. And I guess with some of the relationships as well. I was a bit confused at the start. There was, like, so many characters. It cleared up by the end, and I was like, I fully understand now. But it's that kid at the start, where it's, like, families in a house and they get crushed.
Yes,
and then he just automatically joins the science team. And then, like... But there's nothing done with that character.
Yeah, no.
He's just there.
Yeah. It would be nice to have more of a focus on even like the core four.
Yeah, the core four.
The core four. No, not intentionally there. But like the, like the guy, his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Her dad. And then also the,
the scientist eye patch man.
Yes, him.
Serizawa?
Because I like those characters.
Oh, yeah. No.
And I feel like it would have been a lot more... I feel like I would have been a lot more invested in the whole film if it was just like...
From their perspective entirely. It is Serizawa, right?
Serizawa, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we should have at least had a little bit more of him at the start.
I do agree.
He comes in so late, and then like I'd say he's probably the most interesting character for me.
He also has like the benefit of being instantly identifiable. It's like he's got an eye patch.
He's got an eye patch. It's like we see him. The first time we see him, he's just like waving them off when they go on the boat.
Yes.
And I'm like, who the hell's that guy?
Yeah, he's clearly going to be someone.
And he doesn't say anything, and then like later, then we get him. But I'm like, by then it's sort of like too late, and then obviously you're supposed to have this emotional thing at the end of like, oh, he sacrificed himself.
Yeah, I wasn't too hot on the ending.
But I'm not gonna be emotional about it because I've just met him really.
Then it's just the moment where Sarikawa was like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself.
Oh yeah.
And then I thought to myself,
why?
Why did you? There's part of me that understood his motive in the sense of like
he wants it to die with him.
Yeah. Because he burn all like the information.
and
Right,
he's the
right
only
only
one that
I can be the
remembers.
one that
Yeah.
can activate this thing. And he's like, right, no one can.
Yeah.
So that does make there is some sense in that.
Yeah.
Really, overall, I think it still stands up. And again, as I said, it's
Yeah.
it's never going to be a film that I'm going to be constantly watching.
No.
Nor a film that I'm going to be like, yo, Godzilla from the 50s is
So good, man. It
amazing.
rocks.
But I also think to myself, like, I mean, if people don't really fuck with the newer Godzillas, or they're like,
Yeah.
I just don't like all the fucking like, Kong Skull Island, or like Godzilla Kong New Empire bollocks. What I will say is, like, give the original a go, because there's there's more to it than just that.
It stands up, but I think to like an average modern audience. Like if my mum was gonna watch it,
Yeah.
she's gonna turn it off after like 10
that's
minutes.
fair, that's fair.
Which is like, I think obviously it's a film can be really well made, and obviously, unfortunately, I guess because of the time it was from, people just automatically
Dismiss it.
Yeah, which is
It's
unfortunate.
It's also a black and white film with subtitles.
Yeah, with
also-
interesting pacing.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
So it was well made, but I think in terms of like, if someone's like, I don't want to watch that crap, I'd be like, okay, that's
fair.
fine.
Yeah, I'm not
Like-
gonna be like.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Like, it's whatever.
So that was our discussion on the original 1954 Godzilla film directed by Ishiro Honda. I don't know what the next one might be. The next video might be within this. This month's a bit more, disorientated in a sense, but not as busy as October. Naturally.
Spooky season.
Hope everyone had a fun October, by the way. Yeah, there you go. I need to figure out how to end these videos. I've realized every single time it gets to the point of like, yeah, check everything out. Follow the Instagram. That's another thing I want to say. At Intermission Kills, where updates for everything will be up on there, as well as maybe the odd little reviews for newer films.
Do we have a TikTok?
We don't.
Oh.
We don't. That's all we have to say. Stay tuned. It's the in-between season, isn't it? Because you get October, and then there's November, which doesn't have any theme, really.
Christmas.
And then Christmas, where, there's going to be...
The Nightmare Before Christmas. Potentially.
Maybe.
Krampus, all that stuff.
maybe.
Still get horror Christmas films.
You do, but also that's the month where Nosferatu comes out. So it's
it
going to be a big Nosferatu season. I'm going to say it now, along with some Christmas-themed stuff. It's Christmas-themed horror discussion. It's going to be a lot of Nosferatu. Did you know there's been 2 films before this remake coming out?
I didn't.
There was obviously the original.
Yeah.
And then there was one in the 70s.
Oh. Is that any
Werner
good?
Herzog. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay.
But Werner Herzog directed it. So
No clue who that is.
you know, it's later. We don't need this now. And also, I'm not going to say too much of something, but also in December, there is a 13th of December, which is a Friday. There's that as well. So, yeah, follow those on the socials. Keep having a good old little spooky time. What's your thoughts on Godzilla? I'll be interested in that if you want. And until next time, just see you later.